Good night, welcome to Mindful Life 109. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Tonight we're talking scrap iron, buying scrap iron, old battery buying. You see, in Trinidad and Tobago here, we have the scrap iron industry, and it's a strong industry. One of the difficult things about that industry, though, is that they employ many characters who may be seen as unsavory in other areas of the society, and scrap iron has a lot of these men in the business, and partly because of that and partly because of unscrupulous people, there's a negative image that goes around with it. And the negative image in these last couple of years has been just getting worse and worse and worse, because what these scrap iron stealers are willing to steal is just getting more and more outlandish. Recently we heard they stole a church bell. Oh geez, like how could you steal a church bell? What are we getting to a church bell? A bell from a church? I saw someone in the chat there saying that they're stealing the metal out of cemeteries. I know some people, if you're feeling a little stush, you might have that wrought iron design around your graveside. Yes, I know that one. And then I also know on the flip side of that, some people who may not even be able to afford the more expensive masonry style gravestones get a grave metal, the regular, a cross with a little heart inside it, and to be stealing that, that's hellish behavior, man. That's hellish behavior. Ridiculous. But we're going to follow this story a bit. We're going to follow along this story a bit and see what we could get from it. Because I think that if we follow along this story as it changed over time, we'd actually see that it seems like with so many things, you could wonder, it seems so easy, or it seems like it could be so easy for the government to solve a problem like this, but yet it seems so difficult on the other hand, some way or the other. So, why every country have crime? It's poverty. Less people have is more we need. Rodney Antoine 8 says that. Rodney Antoine 8, I disagree with you. I think the suggestion that poverty causes crime is an insulting suggestion. Poor people do not lack morals, they lack money. So, poor people don't engage in crime. For example, this scrap iron business, the stealing of this scrap iron, isn't poor people. There may be some poor people scaling the fences. There may be some poor people risking their lives up on top of a electricity line. But the person filling the containers and shipping it out, I can assure you, is not a poor person. So, poverty doesn't cause crime. Poor morals cause crime. Now, there is a predictor of increasing crime, relative poverty. That's when you have a wider disparity between the richest and the poorest in the country. Meaning, even if the poorest in the country are still rich, but the richest are just so much richer than them, then there's likely to be an increase in crime. That's called the Gini coefficient. That's one of the most reliable predictors of crime. The difference between relative poverty, but not poverty itself. Having a lack of resources does not make you a thief. And I think that sometimes people try to be well-meaning when they say something like that, but it's actually kind of an insult. Good night, Rhea. Welcome in the house. Now, by the way, I saw now that TikTok has some kind of subscription business, so if you're over on TikTok, you could subscribe to the live. Listen, if it's paid, well, you don't have to subscribe to that, but if it's just the regular subscribe, be sure to subscribe to the live. Nathan, how was your mustache? First day outside. We were outside. I went to a grocery. Oh well, nah, don't subscribe, don't pay those TikTok folks any money. I went to a grocery and I saw a sign. They had up a sign that masks are still recommended. So I walked in maskless, and a guy stopped me at the front and he's like, "Where's your mask?" And I'm like, Well, so I read the sign and I saw recommendation. So is it a recommendation or a requirement? And he said it's a recommendation. And I said, well, I'll be going my way. So I am not about the mask. And as somebody brought up the mask, you know, of the things that annoy me. Yes, Gil, listen, if you pay for TikTok, if you pay for that subscription business, I don't get most of that money anyway. You know? If you want to pay me money, listen, we have bank accounts in Trinidad and Tobago. If you feeling to support me, just hit me up in my inbox. Nobody else has to know. You support. But don't go and pay TikTok any money to try and pay me some cents on the dollars. That doesn't make a sense. $15 an hour, flour is $100, chicken is 80 plus. So how they will make it? I am certain they will not make it by stealing manhole covers. I consistently find the implication of increase of poverty increasing crime to be insulting. That is an insult. That is an insult. Were your parents poor? Was your grandmother a poorer woman? I can tell you I had some poorer people in some of my ancestry, and as far as I know, none of them were thieves because of it. Some of my grandparents, even in their lower times in finances, still upheld pretty high moral standards regardless of their poverty. So the poverty and crime, I understand what you are trying to say. Yes, it will be difficult to make it in certain contexts. Yes, it will be difficult and more difficult, and it may cause people to become desperate, and desperate people may do desperate things, granted, but stealing something from someone else isn't just something that a poor person does. That's something that an immoral person does. Right. Where was I? On the masks. Yeah, the mask, so strange kind of way to me, because they said long time ago that these masks were not to protect you, because the masks cannot protect you. It's like trying to stop mosquitoes with a chain link fence. I don't know how many of you remember that analogy. The mask is like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. The COVID can fit through the mask, so you wearing the mask does not protect you from contracting COVID, as everyone who got COVID wearing a mask would already know. They said the mask's main purpose is to assist in decreasing your ability to harm someone else. But then in the same breath, they're telling the people, if you are more at risk, then you should wear a mask still. But I thought the mask isn't to protect you. If I am diabetic and I am more at risk if I get COVID, and the mask isn't to protect me, why am I wearing the mask? I am not interested in protecting more people. If I am diabetic, my concern isn't just about protecting more people. My concern is about protecting me. And wearing the mask isn't doing that. I think in the long run, some of how they pushed some of this false mask science, I think may have done more harm than good in the long run, I think. Josh the Trini says, okay, so if a business place asks to wear a mask, I will respect. Of course, Josh the Trini. If I'm walking into a business place and they say their rules are you must wear a mask, well, that's your rules. It's like a dress code. If a business place has some dress code, that's fine. Personally, to me, I like the free market. My standard on that kind of level might be even more than many other people's. My view is even up till the point of things as bad as racism. If someone in a store doesn't like black people and they don't want to serve them in modern times even, I might be fine with that. They let it be a free market. Someone else will open the store and be willing to serve everyone and they will get it. So if you want to wear a mask and insist that everyone else wears a mask while you do in your store, well, maybe I will just decide that I will go to another store. Simple like that. Rodney Antoine says morality goes out the window when there is no help. Before pandemic had unemployed people. What nonsense are you telling me, Rodney? Morality goes out the window when there is no help? So your morality is only contingent on how good the situation is, on how much help you have. Your morality is contingent on the surroundings. Well, then that is not morality. Just by the way, if your morality can go out the window if you don't get paid this month, well, then you aren't very moral, I'm sorry to say. But you don't have to be. You can be as moral as you want to be, or as immoral as you want to be. The consequences will just follow as such. But we digress. We were talking initially about scrap iron. Buying scrap iron, old battery buy. And we're trying to follow this. Your morals are how pure you remain no matter the situation. Thank you, Decky 9. And we're trying to follow this from at least not the beginning, but a little while back and see certain things. We're seeing good night, Tony the ambassador. We're seeing how we're going to see how the scrap iron industry has been trying to work in their own way against this, because really and truly all this thieving around the scrap iron industry isn't helping them either. This isn't a benefit to them. All this business about the church bell being stolen doesn't help them. And when you understand that about the church bell, understand that that church bell was over 170 years old. Scrap iron, their purpose isn't to repurpose and reuse the iron in its current position. They're very likely going to squash all of that down and melt it. And to think you're taking a 170-year-old historical relic like that and just throwing it inside of the back of a container to be melted down, that is absurd. You people are crazy. But the scrap iron industry first laid the blame at different places. They laid the blame different places initially. the government for legislation. They're saying that in order to help deal with these issues, they need some overarching legislation. Scrap iron don't benefit me, give me your money. Okay, I don't know what you're trying to say there. Bear in mind, there are some moderators, and if the comments reach to just the trolling level, they do hit you the mute every now and again. So, you know, when you're conversing, I enjoy the conversation and I encourage the conversation, but when you're conversing, you know, try to make some sense with it. Right, now, the scrap iron dealers have been putting the blame elsewhere for some time now because of this. They're saying it's not just them. They've been talking to the government. This isn't our association. We're telling the government what is going on. They need to bring some legislation to get this done. And when the cable thefts started rising, they put the blame squarely on the hands of TSTT. Now, when I first read about this, to be honest, I didn't like the tone of it. Yeah, I didn't like the tone of this story when I first read it, because it sounded nearly like the association was trying to, you know, strong hand TSTT. It's so strange to me when I talk to many of these young people, and you're sounding young with the conversation here. When I talk to many of the young men and they talk conversation like this, boy, were you talking about $15 an hour? Instead, I could go and make a $20,000 thief in that cable. And then these young men are the ones that end up mangled on a cable somewhere, electrocuted. And when they do steal the cable, because it's stolen, you can't go and insist how much money you get. You go to the yard and you tell them, well, I am going to give this, and they say, well, actually this is stolen. You take $2,000 and go your way. And then when you say, I don't want $2,000, then you end up dead. Because very often you see in some of these cable thefts, when they go to steal together, one of them ends up killing the other. One of them ends up killing the other very regularly. I was reading just over this weekend, some guy left his home somewhere 12 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock midnight, and he was saying, well, I am going to get copper. I don't know where you're going to get copper at that hour in the night, but that was the message he told his wife or his girlfriend or something like that. Then somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning when he's returning home, gunshots were heard. He's dead right outside his yard. That's what happens. So yeah, I not taking that $15 an hour nonsense. And I go in and make that. I go and hustle and make that money quick. And then the strange thing is, 10 years down the road, this guy has one Jordan to his name and one rubber slipper. Good night, sir. And then the guy who was making $15 an hour in the beginning, he reached to $30 an hour now, and he has his little car, and he has his wife, and he has his family, and you're watching him and saying, you see, he feel big enough, he feel big enough. Watch now, them feel the big enough, them get a little education, and they get a little nice, so can they feel the big? No, that's not what happened. You are an idiot, and you chose to try and run down the fast money instead of making sensible decisions. And the thing here, as the head of the scrap iron dealership, he revealed this long time. He's requesting now for the exports to shut down. He's requesting that they shut down these exports. That's how far the head of the scrap iron dealership is willing to go. And I understand why he would be willing to go that far. From his position, he's looking and he's saying, listen, if this continues this way and it gets too bad, they're going to shut down the entire industry and we won't be able to do anything about it. So he is saying, before we reach that far, here's what. I am willing to sacrifice that copper business right now, shut it down, and let's get to the bottom of this. Strangely enough, the government and those in authority are not taking his view and are not taking his recommendation. And you have to worry sometimes if they like these criminal acts going on. And then for the young people who run out there, the young men who run out there foolishly to make the quick money and think they're conquering the system. I am beating my way around the system by making fast money, and the system didn't even know I could make it, not understanding that the system created that avenue just for silly you to run in, and then they would make money off of your corpse as you die young. Right, so he is saying stop the export of certain scrap irons. And this is now he's saying this. scrap iron head, has been asking for so long for government assistance in this, it perplexes me. It makes me feel, it makes me wonder if there is some vested interest, even in some government official inside of this whole business, because this seems like something that is supposed to be so easy to stop. Every time we work for people, they're getting rich, not us. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You could work for someone and become very wealthy off of that. The majority of wealthy people in the world work for someone else, so that's not true either. But even in the government solution to this, you wonder, even if the government gets involved, what are they going to do? If they are actually capable, if they are competent enough to do something about it. When I see these, best name one rich person that works for someone else, go through the list of millionaires. I'm not going to go through the list of millionaires. You may be talking about the top 10 billionaires or something like that. If you go through the list of millionaires, most of them are CEOs. A CEO doesn't generally own the company they work for. They are just the chief executive officer. Many CEOs are millionaires while not owning the company. They work for someone. They work for a board, etc., etc. You really need to understand business and understand the functioning of money. I think many of the times the hustler mentality, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm focusing on you because, as you say, you're thinking like a criminal, but I could see it. It has the you're talking with the hustler mentality. They speak, and they speak ignorantly about money and not understanding many of the times they lose out, not because the system hates them, not because the system fighting down the poor youth, but many of the times they lose out because of ignorance. And when you compound your ignorance with arrogance and way too much pride for your level of ignorance, then it makes it impossible to even learn. So you're stuck in a position of ignorance with too much pride to learn. So then you end up, I'm not going to work for anybody out there. But then you end up working for a gang leader where all you get in exchange is maybe to wear his gold link to a Zessa party every now and again. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. It really doesn't make sense. But as I was saying, the nature of these easy to solve problems, you just run in a yard, open the container, see the stolen metal, and lock somebody up. It makes you wonder, like, okay, is the government really trying? Are they really trying? And the Prime Minister, I believe it was today, he made that speech where he spoke about the crime situation, etc., etc., etc. And he said the government is going to target the youth. Focus in targeting on the youth, and they're going to try to fight this crime, but they're going to find a unique way to fight the crime, and they're going to use a page out of the pandemic book. brought to remembrance a story that I saw. A story that I read, was it Saturday, a couple of days ago. That story was a nightmare. And it had to do with the very same thing that the Prime Minister is talking about here, where he's saying that the government is partly to blame for this upsurge in crime because the government wasn't doing their duty in terms of policing certain actions, coming out from certain areas in the country. Let's go into this article. Let's read this article to see exactly what to put it plainly. All right, folks, that's all I have for now. Any questions or comments before we dive out? Looking at you folks over on Facebook also, I see that there have been some continuous viewership over on Facebook. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to jump in the live chat as per usual. And as per usual, if you are viewing this live over on Facebook or over on TikTok, you can feel free to head over to my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, NATHANSPRINGER, Nathan Springer over on YouTube. And feel free to subscribe there. The lives are located there. You know, it's saved there. You could go back through. There are lots of lives. If you have now stumbled upon these lives and you're like, hey, I really like this, but I wish I could have listened to this right through. Well, you can actually, because there are hours upon hours of these. We are on live 109. That suggests there have been, yes, those 108 before. Most of them are located over on my YouTube channel. You can head over there. Feel free to subscribe. And there are other videos that come out there also. There are other videos that come out there that you'll be able to take in when they do come out. I agree with you. I don't believe him. Lydia Calderon says. Shadow Apprentice says, gosh boy, I reach real late tonight. Well, the live is over on YouTube, Shadow Apprentice. Don't worry. And usually for those of you stopping in for a first time or unusual and not common time and you don't know, the live is every weeknight, usually every weeknight starting from around 9 p.m. Sometimes, you know, there's a little slip up. You start 9:10 or something. Latest usually is 9:30. Latest. Next time we would talk about the meetup. Yes, it's a thing that's going to happen, and it is going to happen. I agree. All right, folks, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and that's all I have for now. I will see you guys in the next Mindful Live, which will be tomorrow night, tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. I will see you then. Peace.